Well, thank you for coming today. It's our first webinar of 2019. I think in 2019, you're going to see an increased pace on the webinars just to introduce new functionality and to reinforce other functionality. So hope you enjoy this and you get benefit. Today's webinar is primarily focused, or really the focus of it, although I know some of you are not Boy Scouts, the functionality can be used elsewhere. But the focus of this is the summer camp module, the program module that is used extensively by Boy Scout councils for their summer camp sign-up. It can once again be used for a lot of other things, but the primary focus, the real focus, is Boy Scouts. So as normal with these webinars, we keep them to 45 minutes or less. This one in particular is going to be the first of two. There's a lot of information. I want to make sure that we just go through it at a pace where everybody can follow it. So we're going to have two of these, the next one being next Wednesday. So if you haven't signed up for that, please do so. At any point, you can submit questions to the panel, and occasionally I'll glance over to that and make sure that I'm answering your questions. And we'll post this video, if not today, tomorrow, so you can go back and take a look at it. So here's what I want to talk about today. I mean, it's clearly for Boy Scouts, summer camp is your #1 program in the year, especially from a revenue perspective and from an overall participation perspective. So I want to go over a couple of things here today, or a few things, and if time permits, we'll get into a couple of advanced things as well. But one of the things that we allow you to do, we've had other webinars on this, but I just want to reinforce it, and I'm going to show you how we go and do it here, is that you have the ability to go and get all of your units, all of the adult and scouts in those units, and import it into the system. And what this allows you to do is to have the roster there for all of your unit leaders or administrators that are signing up the scouts for summer camp. So we're going to go over that. The other thing I want to go over, and not going to focus on every single aspect of it, there's just too much there, but I do want to take a look at configuring the program, trying to address some of the things that I see people maybe doing more work than is necessary to accomplish. So I want to go over discounts, price groups, payment schedules, setting registration dates, and that's an important one, and we'll go over that a bit later. Payment notifications. We all know that sometimes people need to be nudged to make their payments. The system can do those reminders for you, leaving to you only those people that need nudging beyond the emails that the system does. And then I want to go into program configuration. And then, as I mentioned before, if time permits, we can go into event instances. Next week, I'd like to go over reporting, check-in, merit badge requirements, printing off the merit badge completion, or a substitute for the blue cards. And I'm going to ask that if you have any specific questions you want answered, to email those this week to doublenut@doublenut.com, and they'll forward those to me, and I'll make sure that we're able to go in and answer those questions for you. So with that, what I'm going to do is to go in, and I am going to start with, as a unit, going in and registering for summer camp. Now, what I'm going to do here this morning over the next 40 minutes or so is I'm going to go into the configuration, make some changes, and we'll see what those changes look like or what impact it has on the actual registration for camp. So I'm just going to go, and I can see on my calendar that I have my camps out here. So here's week 1 of my summer camp 2019. A lot of you also use the method of displaying your camps this way, so that people can see, what camps, the dates of the camps, how much space is remaining in that camp. You can also click on details. And I think most of you are probably aware of how you get the link to use this. But this one actually shows you, or the person trying to register, is there still space in those things that I'm interested in having my adults and my scouts sign up to. So, And I can show you later on where you get that URL should you want to publish that page. So I'm just going to go in and I'm going to go and register. And I set up the camp. So one of the things I recommend you do is that you set up your camps that require the person to either log in or create a user profile if they don't have one. And the reason is that virtually 100% of your camps require your troops to log back in and make updates to their registration as their roster matures and they have the schedule for what merit badges are going to be offered when. So you may as well get them started right out of the chute and have them create a profile and log in. And it's particularly important if you import your roster. And I'm going to get more into that in just a little while. So in this case, I'm just going to go log in. I'm going to log in as this person, a unit leader. And I should warn you that this is a test site. So you might see some functionality that's not available on production site, but this is where we do certain testing prior to rolling out functionality to the real site. But everything I'm showing you today, it is in production. So our very first thing I'm going to do here is we're going to go over price groups. And this is not applicable to everybody, but some of you have different pricing for different types of groups. The most common being in-council units or out-of-council units. And so what you can do is have that group identify if they're in-council or out-of-council. You have the ability to go change that should they make a mistake or even if they make a mistake. And what this does, it drives different pricing for the different types of groups in council or out of council in this example for the scouts and the adults. I'm going to continue, and what it's going to do at this point, by the way, at the top, it'll tell me if I've already registered for this event. So this would hopefully prevent this user from going in and doing a new registration when they've already created a registration. So at this point, they can just click on edit and get right into their existing registration. Since I've logged in, the system knows if I've registered before. Now I'm going to go check questions here in just a little while. So if you have questions, you can put those in there. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in right now and I'm going to say, I'm going to register my troop again. I know I have a registration out there, but I just want to go through this from the beginning. So my troop is already here. And the reason it is here is that either I have logged in before and created a troop, I as the troop leader or the administrator have gone in, created my troop in the past, added the scouts onto the scout roster, and therefore it's already in the system, I can go and select it. Or this troop is there as a result of you importing it. And that's the example I have here. So regardless, it would be here. If it's not the troop, sometimes I'm the unit leader for more than one troop or a troop and a crew or something along those lines. So in this case, I'm just going to go and select troop 187. And the very first thing it's going to ask me to do, because of the way this event is configured, it's going to say, who is coming? And I could say, I'm going to bring 10 scouts and 2 adults or 3 adults. So at this point, it's leaving room for me to go and name all these scouts and the adults. Now, the way I have this currently configured, it's not going to require me to name them. At some future date, you can require them to name everybody. And I'm going to go through and we're going to flip some switches so you can see exactly what the functionality includes here. So at this point, I can go through and say I want to name my adults. So I'm just going to go through and I can click on, I go down to the bottom, go to adult 1, and I can enter a name here, or I can click on this link and it's going to bring up people that are in my roster. And I could say, oh, you know, Jacob is an adult, and I have another adult leader, and I'm just going to pick a couple of names here that happen to be adults inside of my unit. So it's populating. Notice what it's doing. It's actually going to my troop roster and allowing me to select those individuals. Now, I don't know every scout that's going to be coming to camp yet, but I still know I'm reserving space for 10. And if I wanted to, I can go and select scouts here as well from that roster. But as I mentioned, the way this is currently configured, it's not requiring me to name everybody because I still have some Webelow transition. I don't know who those scouts are, and I'm going to leave room for them once they join the troop. And if I have a scout that is not in that roster, that maybe it's somebody new, it's not among the imported or ones I've entered before, I can go in here and say, this is Sam Smith. And so I can enter names that are not in my existing roster. Now, one of the things here is I have to have a name entered in order to sign those scouts up to the merit badges or the other classes that are offered. So at this point, I'm just going to hit continue. Now it says, what are they doing? So at this point, I can click on what are they doing? And it's telling me to use this drop down to select the different people to see what activities they're going to sign up for. So at this point, I'm going to select that new person, Sam Smith. I have different categories, and you can define those categories. And this one's an adult training, but I can have business and technology merit badges, and I can add them. I can add the different merit badges for this scout, Sam Smith, to his schedule. So right now, Sam is scheduled for business and technology as well as handicraft. Now, one of the things I'm going to get into in a little while is that there is the ability for the system to do conflict resolution. In other words, you can see that communications is scheduled for October 2nd through the 5th from 1 to 3, and art is scheduled from the 2nd through the 5th from 10 to 5, 10:50. You can actually, and we're going to go and do this in a little while, you can turn on conflict checking, and it wouldn't allow you to select a conflict. Some of you want that, and some of you don't. I've talked to some councils, and they say, well, if there's a conflict, we could usually work it out or something along those lines. So you don't have to have conflict resolution on, and it wasn't on by default last year. It wasn't an option, I believe, last year, but it is an option this year, and we'll go through some examples of that in just a little while. So I'm just going to go through, and I have my adults registered. I'm going to continue. And at this point, it's asking me to select one of the campsite for my troop. And this is from the list of campsites. And if there's still room in that site, it would be in that list. Right now, I'm doing this camp registration as a troop leader. And then I can go and I can check out. I'm going to get into some of these other things later. For example, right now, it's the manual conflict. So this is where I can click on this, and it will show me if any of the people that I've registered for class, if there was a conflict between one class and another. So that you have in the system. At this point, I am just going to go and check out. So if you remember what we did here, we had a price group that was set up that said it was in council or out of council. And I also see a lot of times what councils are doing is that they will have registrant types, not just adult and scout, but they'll have free adult, and scout. So to simplify things, to make it easier for people who are registering and to make it easier for you, one of the things I've done here is enter a free adult discount. So it's essentially will give the first 2 adults will get in for free. So here you can see adults are $250 each. And it's giving the $500 discount, which we've named free adults. And I can show you how to go and do that. I also have a payment schedule on this, which is typical for summer camp. And right now, the payment, because it's before 2/1, is only $100. The person can also elect to pay and do any of these other options, make the next payment, or just pay in full, in which case they will actually save money because they're getting a discount if they pay in full. So I'm just going to click on pay now, and then we can go and check out. Now, when we check out, it would ask me to either mail it in, which is typical for scout councils. What you will do is that you allow the person to make a payment online or to mail their payment in. So that's the way this one is configured. And this is a test site, and it's just loaded with some test registrations. So that's a process somebody would go through to register their unit, and then make their deposit and sign up for classes throughout in that process. So I'm going to hit cancel here, but we're going to do this a couple of more times. And I want to go in, and at this point, I'm going to go to a different screen where I'm logged in as an administrator. And so here I'm logged in as an administrator. And before I do that, I am going to glance down here and see if there are any questions. Manage groups that have carried over. Can unit leaders manage their groups that have carried over from prior years? Yes. So if a unit leader was there from last year and they went in and they that troop would be their troop would be in that list when they're registering. They just select that, and then they could add people that are new this year to the registration. But they could also remove people from that list as well. And I'll show you where they do that in just a moment. Okay. So what I have here right now, I just want to show you, and there are a couple more questions, and I will get back to those in just a little while. Oh, this is a good one. I'm sorry, I should have even said this before. Someone says their interface doesn't look like this. Who is coming? Some of the councils we gave you through last year to go continue to use the old interface for program management. We're going to flip that switch, and I'm going to do that later today so that everybody is going to be getting this new interface. You don't need to go through and reconfigure anything, but the new interface will be the one that you will automatically be there. It doesn't require you to make any configuration changes on your side. And there are a number of benefits to that new interface. And when we do the next registration, I'll bring that up. So, and getting ready for this summer camp, sorry, I'm going pretty quick here. There's a lot to cover, hence why we record these things. So to do this, one of the things I want to do is I'm going to getting ready for my camp. So that's how we go and do the group import. Let me go and show you a few other things as it relates to the configuration and what this means. So let's go into event management. From event management, I'm going to click on my programs. I see my 2019 summer camp. And what I am going to do is just go over a few different things here. We recommend that one of the things that you do is that prior to going live with your programs, especially before you allow them to sign up for the merit badge classes, that you just go through and you sync your event registration dates. And what this is going to do, it's just going to copy the registration dates for each of the weeks, including when the registration opened, when does it close, and how long they can update their registration. It's going to copy that information down to all of the classes in that week. We have found at times people have gone through and done all the editing, and all of a sudden they didn't realize they set a registration begin date for the camping merit badge incorrectly to a wrong date. So that just synchronizes everything. So that is the synchronized session event dates. You can also synchronize all session event. You can actually set the registration dates this way as well. So you can go through and do that. And you can also do that at the individual week level. All this does is it just makes sure that all of the registration, open, close, and the date up until which you can edit your registration are set correctly. So that was a couple of important things to go back and do. Inevitably, there'll be one or two of you that we'll find each year you have to go and do that. The second thing I'm going to do here is we're going to go and edit the program. Now, one of the things with the new interface, even though it's been out there a couple of years now, some of you are not using it yet. You've elected not to, but we're going to turn that on for everybody. Is that one of the things with the new interface we can go through do here is that reserve a block of space. So depending on where you are in the year, so maybe your leader's guide's not available for the 2019 yet, all you want to do is have people reserve the block of space. How many adults and how many scouts are coming? So I can go through and I can go, and let's go to this site here. I'm going to go register for this. I'm still logged in as that person. I'm going to say in council, and I am just going to go and register. So who's coming now? I could say the two scouts, or 13 scouts and 2 adults. And it's not showing me the names. All I want to allow them to do is just reserve their block of space. That's what that is doing. If I go back here now and I edit the program, and we're going to change this wording a little bit just to make it clearer, I can allow them to reserve a block of space and name people, but naming is currently optional. So if I go and save this, and I go back to where I am registering as that user, and I say who is coming, notice now it has all the spaces for the names, but I can continue without actually naming those individuals. Now, until I name somebody, I actually can't sign them up for a class. They have to be named before I can sign them up to a particular class. Then I could do, if I go back in here, and maybe before camp, however far before camp, some of you will go in and you will say, require, essentially name the individuals. And if I name the individuals, it's going to require that I name each of the people on that registration. That might be cached, it might not be saved at this point. So here you could say that I have to go and name the people. It's not going to let me continue until I name them. So early on in the cycle, you may want to just have reserve a block of space. And then you might want to allow them the option of naming individuals. And then eventually before camp, maybe just prior to the last payment, you say require them to name the individuals so the roster is complete prior to going to camp. So that's what that one is about. And I will get to your questions, I hope, here in a little while. I know they're coming in. Yes, there will be a video. When will you flip these? I'll probably flip them later today. I'll read your questions first before I flip that. All right, let me go back to edit the program. And I'm just going to keep it at the option of both. Now, one of the nice things about the new interface is that it allows people to adjust the number of people that are coming to class. It's all on that one screen. Let me go and continue on a few things here that are important. The reserve a facility, are you going to require them to select their campsite? That's what that one is about. This option is used differently by different councils. But you can come in here at any point, and then you can prevent them from making changes to their registration. So maybe after a certain date, you allow them to increase the number of people they've committed to bring, but not decrease the number of people that they can bring. So if I go into my registration at this point, and I say I want to really bring 7 people, it's still cash. So actually, it's cash. So it won't let me. It'll let me change it at the moment, and won't let me do that afterwards. So you can prevent them from. I take it back. The reason it didn't prevent me from reducing the number of people is that I hadn't yet saved that registration. Had I saved that registration and gone back to edit, it wouldn't let me reduce the number of people I committed to bring. That's the reason. So that option cannot decrease the number of registrants. So once I save my registration, I can't decrease the number of people. I can't increase the number of registrants, or I can't change it at all. So I know some of you will actually use this option. You don't want them to decrease it. You can always do it as an administrator, but they can't. You just want to control it after a certain date. Okay. The other thing, and it's really recommended you do this, I tend to scan the database prior to about this time of year or next month and see if this is set. And this says if they've already completed their registration once before, and now I'm coming back in and editing it, and I've reserved my space for the 2 adults and the 10 scouts. If I now begin to name those individuals and I don't complete the registration, it'll save the named individuals and the classes they've signed up to. Now, maybe there's a payment that's due. You don't want them to be saved until they make a payment. You could always turn that off. But inevitably, if you turn this off, you will have some individuals that will swear they completed their registration and they lost everything. This helps alleviate that issue because indeed they did not complete their registration. Sometimes we'll find that people said they did and you talk to them, they go, well, I really wasn't ready to pay yet, and there was a payment due. But we do recommend that you set this option to save updated session events, even if the checkout is not completed, okay? Oh, that's a good one that someone just brought up, and I'll go and do that. I'll make sure I come back into some of this. And someone said, how do you not require an email address for the youth? It's a good one. I'll go back and show you that configuration in a little while. The options here are, and you can play with this if you want yourself, but we highly recommend you keep it that way. In other words, you register by individual, not by merit badge. Merit badge says select the badge, and then you can specify who is going to go to that. And the reason we don't do that is some of the new functionality. That's an old screen that we've not gone in and updated with the new functionality, and there are reasons why that. You can actually automatically turn on conflict resolution. So right now it's manual. You can make it automatic. And if I go down to that, now one of the things I'm going to stress here, and I always stress in these webinars, is test it. And the way you test it is not going here and log it and doing a registration as an administrator, because you see things as an administrator that are not available to end users. You might not have certain categories for your classes available, and you see them because you're an administrator, but your registrants, your units may not. And that's why I have a separate browser open and I'm logged in as this person. So let me go in, and just so I don't have to enter a bunch, I'm just going to say 2 scouts and 2 adults. And I'm going to go and name a couple of these individuals, or just one of them. That's all I need to do right now. And I am going to, I'm still requiring them to go and set up. So let me go and set this. Okay, both. That registration is already started is why. So I'm just going to go here and I'm going to say, just quickly register a couple of individuals. That's what happens. I'm making these changes to a registration that's already started. Okay. So what I did is I turned on automatic resolution, a conflict resolution. So if I say, what are they doing? I can see here I have, if I add COPE as an example, that I cannot register for paddlecraft safety because it's at the same time. Okay, so you can turn that on and it will not allow you to register. And once again, you can see that, you know, different items. It won't allow me to register for items where there's a conflict, that I've already registered for something for that time slot. I'm going to show you some advanced features on that. I'm looking at the clock already. I'm not going to have time today, but I will show you next week. And that is where you can have something that maybe COPE meets on the 2nd from 9 to 11 and on the 5th from 3 to 4. We allow you to do that kind of configuration of the system. So if you don't want people to schedule, have conflicts in their schedule, you're able to go and do that, okay? So I am just going to go through, and that's what the conflict resolution is. The other things I'll show you here is these check boxes. So you'll see these in the system. So in this example, if I say don't show this, it's not going to show right now to the units the classes they can sign up to. Maybe the leaders guide's not available. You copied last year's programs. You've not yet updated all of the classes. You want to disable that, but still allow them to register for the camp. How many people are coming, and possibly even naming the people that are coming. But until the leader's guide is finalized, I don't want to show that. Now, one of the biggest mistakes that we will see with folks is that they will go in and go in as an administrator. Let me go and save this. Go in as an administrator and think everything's fine, not realizing that an end user is not going to see that particular item. I just said hide that. Don't allow them to select their classes yet. Once again, why it's important, you have to go in and test these things. Okay. So let me go and back to here and see if there's any other really important things, and then go and start to address some of your questions. So most of these other ones are explanatory. These do give you the ability to relabel those buttons as well as the text beneath them. So some of this might reserve a facility, or might, rather than say sign up for an activity, might sign up for a merit badge. You have the ability, by modifying the text under Edit Program, to modify what wording is on that screen to help your users. And that's important depending on what kind of program they happen to be signed up to. I'm going to go over some of this next week. All right. So let me go into an actual week of camp and touch on a couple of other things that I think are important. One is, someone asked this before, is I can go in and I'll edit all occurrences. And they said, how do you not show or require the phone number and email address for youth? So I came in here and I said, don't show email address and don't show phone number. And I do one other step, so anticipating your next question, and I save that. Okay. Now what I do is I go into registrant attributes. And registrant attributes allows me to select the scouts and say, what do I want to ask about the scout? Maybe I want the scout's birthday, and I can edit, I can then collect the scout's birthday. But for leaders, I'll save that just to do that. But for leaders, I want to collect their phone number and email address and any other piece of information when I can collect that as well. So what this means is, when I go who is coming, and I say I want to bring that, notice now it's asking me for the birth date for my scouts. And for adults, it's not asking birth date, but it is asking and requiring phone number and email address. By the way, the birth date is in there because I imported that earlier when I did that import, and that's why that's there. Hence when I said import the address, phone number, birth date if you have it, because some of your events do ask for that. So you can do that. Okay. Some of the other things that I think are important here, if I go back and I hit done, is we can go through, so we went over registrant attributes. You can do registrant ratios as well. So you can say I require one adult for every 10 scouts. But I can also go into this system and say, I'm going to require at a minimum 2 adults. And so I have to have at least 2 adults on my registration in order to register. So you're always going to make sure that you have that 2 deep leadership. We have payment schedules. So the payment schedules is what you see here. I'm not going to spend a lot of time in this since I think all of you are using this. If you have any specific questions on it, there's documentation, but feel free to reach out to us. Also, if any of you have set up a camp and you just want us to review it, just ask us to do so. There's no charge for that. We'll review your camp, make sure, we give you some pointers on how to go and do certain things. The other thing I've done here is I've added price groups. And price groups essentially say the following. For this particular item, I've said If I select in council, it's $250 for an adult leader. Out of council is $300. In council scout is $400. Out of council scout is $450. So this gives me the ability upfront to do different pricing based on the type of group that is actually registering. Okay. I'm sorry I'm not getting to these questions, but I just want to touch on some of these, and I promise I will answer these questions. If you want to stick around, I can stick around for a little while longer and answer those questions. Otherwise, I'll write answers to those so you have access to those. So the other piece of functionality that I think is really important, and I think only like 50% of you are using it, is notifications. I have that payment schedule, have the system automatically send emails reminding people that a payment is coming due. You set the schedule, so I set it 14 days before a payment is due and continue 20 days after a payment is due if they've not made their payment, and send it out every 5 days. And essentially, you could provide different wording for a payment that's becoming due, and sterner warning for payments that are late, such as, we'll keep your deposit and cancel your registration, whatever you think is appropriate there. What this functionality does is that you will still have to hound certain people for their payment, but the far majority of the people will respond to that email reminder. So, oh yeah, that's right, the camp payment is due. Let me mail it in, or let me go and make my payment online. Hence why it's important that you record, and we'll go over this next week when we talk about managing camp registrations. It's important that you record those payments. So notifications is something that should make your life a lot easier. Okay. The other thing I did here, and I'm just going to show you what I did, is I've added discounts for those free adults. Do it. And the discounts I've added is that I added this free adult discount where it says 1 free adult if I register at least 1, a 2nd free adult if I register at least 2. So those discounts take effect when I register my adults. So the first 2 are going to be free, and the 3rd on is going to be you're going to charge for. You can even set up discounts. For example, you can set up a discount where I say, for every 10 scouts, I'm going to get 1 free adult. Or maybe for every 10 scouts, I get $20 off an adult. So there's a lot of things you can do here with discounts. You can also use discounts for, and I see some of you use this, but you can also use discounts one-time use. And I'm not going to go into this because, once again, timing, but I can create a discount that can only be used one time, that maybe I give to a unit leader that qualifies for an additional discount for some reason, and they can use that coupon code when they check out to get that discount amount on the registration. It can only be used once. It can't be used a second time. So I think there are a lot of other things that I wanted to cover, but let me go over some of your questions. Did we update the merit badge requirements? We've updated most of them. We're scheduled by the end of next week, updating all the requirements for the merit badges for the changes of the year. Do your previous webinar recording merit badge requirements. So we're going to be talking about merit badge requirements next week, including printing the report. So you want to come back for that. Is there a way to force a specific registrant type not to continue without choosing a class? There is in programs for individual registrants, for like University of Scouting, when you do the programs, not for groups but for individuals. But there is not the ability to force a registrant, each registrant in the group registration, to select a class. And the reason is that we often find that, yeah, I know you want scouts to be able to select a class, but adults not. No, we don't have that ability to require them to do so. Is there any way to require all registrants to pay in full prior to activity sign up? No, they're not. There's not a way to say pay in full before you sign up for your classes. You could turn on when those classes are available. So, for example, you can say you have to pay in full by February 15th, and on February 16th is when you open it up for registration. And anybody, and maybe you have a stiff late fee for somebody who hasn't made their payment by that date. But there's not a way of saying you can only sign up for classes if you have made a full your full payment. But you can do a late fee if they've not made a full payment. So you can do that as part of the payment schedule. Questions be asked by others. How do we see questions? I will publish the questions, the answers to questions, because obviously we're already late here. Is the save update, is the save updated? If the save, I'm not sure about that one, Michelle. I can go back. I'll get that. Will they be holding this? I will probably go back and there are a lot of questions which come up, which is great. I will go and write answers to these and publish them. And next week, I will publish that. I'll give you the URL of where that list is of the answers to your questions. How about if I do that rather than just answer these too quickly? So you can see we've already used our time. I could use a lot more time. And maybe we'll even have a third session on this, since I know you have a lot of questions. So I'll leave you with this. Make sure you sign up for next week. I'll publish this webinar so you can go back to the video. I will write answers to your questions, and everybody will be able to see the questions and the answers to those questions. Submit questions that you have for next week that you think are important, especially as it relates to managing the registrations and check-in. Make sure I cover those types of things. I'm going to talk about merit badge requirements and checking those off and printing reports for that and so forth. I'm also going to show you what the unit leaders can see from a reporting perspective, so you have that understanding as well. And then if need be, as I mentioned already, we can schedule a third session and get down into even more detail. I can just tell by the number of questions you have that that might be a good thing to do. And there was something else I was going to say, and I forgot at this point. So with that, I will conclude this webinar, and we can meet again next Tuesday, and possibly after that if you want to for another session. I can see nobody's left, so you must want to get more information on this. And I will leave this as well. This is the thing I remembered. I mentioned it earlier, but I think it's really important. Feel free to reach out, send an email to support, say, I've got this summer camp. This is where the camp can be found. Will you review it? And just see if you have any recommendations. And that's particularly important, not so much, believe it or not, for the new councils that are on board, but for the councils that have been using this for 12, 13 years or more, that, you know, they've always gone about it the same way. Having us review it, we're more than willing to do so. We want to do so. So please take us up on that offer. So any questions, email them to doublenot@doublenot.com. I will get a copy of all of these questions and publish my answers to them, and then we can meet again next Wednesday. So I hope everybody enjoyed it, and we'll meet again soon. Thanks.